Hey guys, it's Gala Avery from the Video Archives podcast. While we're shuffling tapes and gearing up for season 2, Quentin and Roger have sent me on a mission all around Los Angeles and beyond to talk with filmmakers, photographers, VHS collectors, and other interesting characters. What are we going to be talking about? Well, that's up for my guests to decide. On the Gala show, guests have 30 minutes to talk about whatever topic they want you to know about. Filmmakers like Josh Miller will tell us how he found his tribe, while writers like Larry Karaszewski will let you know what he considers to be a true LA movie. VHS collectors like Connor Holt make an argument for the genre of pirate movies, while writers like Josh Olson are going to let us in on what he considers to be right-wing cinema. Actors like Percy Hines White will share his love of outsider art, while animators and cartoonist Sierra Nielli will reminisce on his experiences of growing up in a Philly pizza shop and how this time in his life influenced him to pick up a pencil. So, join me every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The Gala show premieres October 26th, available wherever you get your podcasts. On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, paging Dr. Quentin, paging Dr. Roger, you're needed in OR8 for Arthur Hiller's The Hospital, where madness, murder, and malpractice are running rampant. Dr. Bach, played by Video Archives leading man George C. Scott, is the chief of medicine at a hospital in Manhattan. Not only is he suicidal from his professional life collapsing, but a string of malpractice cases leads him to believe that there's a murderer on the loose. Written by our first truly great writer featured on the podcast, Quentin and Roger discuss the masterful storytelling by Paddy Chayefsky, Scott's volcanic performance, and what Hiller brings to the screen no matter what movie he's directing. Next up, Quentin and Roger travel to the early American West in Ulzana's raid. Based on true happenings, fierce war chief Ozana and a contingent have jumped the reservation and are bent on murder and terror. An inexperienced young lieutenant is assigned to track him down. With him travel a top-notch scout and an Apache guide. What ensues is massacres, rapes, looting, and sheer terror of the American people. Quentin and Roger discuss confronting hidden prejudices within evolving characters, the surprising and brutal violence of the film that mirrors the Vietnam War, and the working relationship between Robert Aldrich and Burt Lancaster. And, last but not least, Quentin and Roger reach for an impossible dream and build a miracle in steel. A building tycoon falls to his death, leaving his skyscraper unfinished. His daughter sets her sight on finishing the last 9 floors against the will of her uncle, who wants the bank to default on it so he can have not only the building, but her father's business for himself. With nothing but moxie, she assembles the 7 samurai of the construction world to hang iron and get this job done. A remarkable movie about America coming together, we discuss the unique way that we watch this film, how a team can come together, and the fantastic cast this movie features. I'm Gala Avery, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery.
Thank you, Gala, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Video Archives podcast. I'm your co-host, Quentin Tarantino.
And I'm Roger Avery, and would somebody please kill the Bacalov?
So our first movie that we're going to be discussing...
Take us to 1971, Quentin.
Yes, in this episode is Paddy Chayefsky and Arthur Hiller's The Hospital. In this beautiful Key Video, which is a 20th Century Fox division, Key Video box.
The rainbow box.
The wonderful rainbow box.
In the space of 1 week, we chop out one kidney, damage another, reduce him to coma, and damn near kill him.
George C. Scott in The Hospital, where everything that happens is a matter of life and death.
I don't suppose you'd like to call next of kin? No, thanks.
This is the emergency room. One of the doctors just died of a heart attack.
What the hell is going on around here? Every time I try to find somebody in this hospital, they either died of a heart attack in emergency or anesthesia shock in an operating room.
Well, what are you suggesting, Doctor? You think we have a mad killer stalking the halls of the hospital?
We have established the most enormous medical entity ever conceived, and people are sicker than ever. We cure nothing! We heal nothing!
George C. Scott in The Hospital.
Paging all listeners, The Hospital, with co-hits Ozana's Raid and Steel, will be playing for 2 nights on Tuesday, May 2nd and Wednesday, May 3rd. Don't miss this Video Archives triple feature, the way that Quentin and Roger intended it. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For tickets and more information, visit thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema. Always on film.
I saw this movie like a couple times when it came out.
I'd never seen this film.
At the theaters. It was kind of sold to me, but my dad's, that's sort of like MASH, just not in the war. And I watched it, and it was sort of like MASH, except not in the war. And even though I think 75% of this movie just operated way above my head, I couldn't have understood anything. Well, I think when George C. Scott's talking about impotency, I don't even think I knew what impotency was, as a 10-year-old in 71, however old I was. But I still thought it was really funny. I still really, really liked it. And I thought George C. Scott was fucking amazing, even though I didn't understand what he was talking about, or couldn't even understand what Paddy Chayefsky was talking about. And I was still mesmerized. But I hadn't seen it in quite a long while. I brought it up to Roger and realized he hadn't seen it at all. And I thought it was time that we threw a really great writer into the mix of our show, which I don't think we had good writers, but I think this is our first really great writer that we've thrown into the mix of the show. I wanted to do that. And I wanted to, because we like George C. Scott so much, and we've enjoyed watching his performances on the show this season so much, that I wanted him to kind of finally meet Rod Steiger status, where so we've had officially I think 3 Rod Steiger movies, or 4 Rod Steiger movies. We've got like 3 George C. Scott movies. We have to have at least 3. Okay, so the back of the key video box, it says in bold headline, George C. Scott in the award-winning satire of medicine's darker side. In the hospital, interns chase the nurses. Patients die from neglect. Doctors quote the stock market, and mayhem is all in a day's work. The prognosis looks dark, and the only antidote is brilliant satire in this richly textured black comedy about a large metropolitan hospital that won its creator, Paddy Chayefsky, an Academy Award. The great George C. Scott is head of this macabre circus, a man who copes with his problems by swigging vodka and contemplating suicide. And the over 63 different characters, including an administrator who requests Blue Cross numbers from a very dead corpse, and a crazed mystery man who's methodically killing off the staff, and you have a blistering, funny, and highly acclaimed commentary that is guaranteed to make you think, even while it makes you laugh. 1972, color 103 minutes. Roger, what did you think of The Hospital, having seen it for the first time?
Well, I found this Franklin Brenner review, which happens to be perfectly in line with how I felt about the film.
Great.
Or at least closely in line, as close as he's ever been. Despite being totally absurd, any personal experience being a patient trapped in the medical system legitimizes even the most ludicrous moments of Arthur Hiller's swing at Chayefsky-branded social commentary, 1971's The Hospital. Tailor-made for George C. Scott to scene steal with his usual virile bravado, here employed playing an impotent doctor, the bear actor gnashes and masticates his way through the carcass Chayefsky has laid out for him, the bureaucracy of American medicine and the failures of systematic intolerance and self-interest. Hiller, for his part, stays out of Scott's way, despite the tight spaces and corridors, but never lets his eye off the grinding magnificence of that fury-soaked performance, only cutting to punctuate. This is Hiller at his finest, indulging the talent to comic inspiration and allowing the language of the camera to evolve from the language of the performance, itself derived from the rhythms of Chayefsky's particular theatrical patois, which is why the film is titled Paddy Chayefsky's The Hospital, because it is.
Well said. Well,
and it really is Paddy Chayefsky's The Hospital, because it's like watching a play, but it is Hiller's game, man, because Hiller, who, when he's great, he's great. Mm-hmm. And when he's not so great, but here he's great. His talents are put perfectly into employment.
Hiller was a great old school director. Now, the thing about it is great old school studio directors are assigned all kinds of movies. And so look, when he does Nightwing, it's not in the same level as when he does the Hospital.
Yeah.
When he does Making Love, it's not in the same level as when he does the Americanization of Emily.
He did Plaza Suite the same year.
Yeah. He's a director who knows how to deal with writer's material.
Yeah.
He knows how to take writer's material, heavily written material, and then dramatize it and bring the best out of it. Now, before The Hospital, he did Paddy Chayefsky, what I consider his other great movie script, which is the Americanization of Emily.
Yeah.
That has a monologue that is, I think, in the top 3 monologues of all time. James Garner is telling the British old lady about his brother's death in the war, about how not to romanticize military service. Mm-hmm. That whole movie is fantastic, and he does it again with The Hospital. And the same year, he'll attack Neil Simon with Plaza Suite, and so he's the guy that you bring in to do these terrific writers and figure out how to bring the best out of them, how to bring the best out of the actors, how to get the best out of the dialogue, and how to get the best drama or comedy out of a scene, how to put it on its feet dramatically.
Yeah, and the best way to do that is to stay out of the way on a personal level and serve the material, which you can really feel like this is a director who's workshopped it. They've rehearsed it. Mm-hmm. They've done proper rehearsal. I mean, they've done rehearsals probably for weeks on this.
I would imagine that if a normal long rehearsal for a movie is 2 weeks, then I would imagine that The Hospital was probably 4 weeks rehearsal. But one of the things that Hiller does to ground these projects, like for instance, in the case of Love Story, he had a really fun script and a real fun movie. This is a good emotional package. An audience goes and sees this movie, they're gonna end up having a good time at the movies. It's a good emotional, fun movie. I say fun, you cry at the end of it, but that's fun. In the case of both his 2 leads, Ryan O'Neal and Ali MacGraw, their chemistry is wonderful together. Now, Arthur Hiller sells that in the whole first half of the movie by having scenes that of the two of them just doing their banter back and forth, a little patter back and forth, uncut.
Yeah.
And so for the first half of the movie, oftentimes big scenes with them are played in long, unbroken takes. So you actually see that they actually do have chemistry together. They actually belong together. You actually like them together. And it's not the movie making that happen. That actually literally just is their dynamic. And consequently, in The Hospital, he has long George C. Scott monologues delivered without any cuts whatsoever. And not just monologues, entire dialogue-driven scenes.
Oh, it goes on and on and on. He might move the camera to a different position to give the illusion of a cut. That you've seen a cut.
Yeah.
But I was stunned at how long he held.
Again, especially in the first half.
Especially in the first half, yeah.
And he goes out of the way, as crazy as and absurd as the movie is, to really ground The Hospital in a recognizable chaos going on.
A realistic chaos.
A very realistic.
Like it's not overfilled. It's not ridiculous.
Now, okay, here's the thing, though. I think there is a difference between the first half of the movie and the second half of the movie. And the first half of the movie is the realistic part of the film. And
then it starts spinning off axis.
And then it starts spinning off its axis. And as crazy and as hysterical as the movie is at the beginning, he's doing the thing that television later with Hill Street Blues will do, of just bustling characters, moving in their jobs, moving down corridors, going in and going out. He's doing the same thing Chayefsky will later do with Altered States, having characters just barrel through technical jargon at a rapid pace, but the actors seem to know what they're talking about as they bombard you with their jargon as they walk down these halls, usually at full volume. Well, in the case of Altered States, always at full volume.
Always at full volume, yeah.
But look, I have an issue with the film that actually is less an issue and more of a point of departure to talk about the film. But I just thought The Hospital was just fantastic. It knocked me out. I've seen it before, but watching it with you, it was really, really special. And I actually think George C. Scott gives one of the best performances I've ever seen in my life. Not just, I mean, it's just one of the best performances I've ever seen. On one hand, even though I didn't understand what he was talking about, I think I understood that as a little boy. But now, watching it as an older man, I almost feel that there was a quote once that most men end their lives in anguish. And I think that actually is true. I think most men do end their lives in anguish. And I think there's something to George C. Scott's character and to his id that he reveals that once you get older, that is just kind of devastating. That I see something of myself in him at this age. All right. And it's none of the high points. It's just but there is an anguish there.
Yeah.
There is an anguish there that I wouldn't have related to at any other time in my life. But now I'm at the right age that I can. I think it's one of the best characters I've ever seen in my life. And I think it's one of the best performances I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I too am really glad that I saw this movie. I mean, you saw it as a young boy and also now, but I'm glad I saw this movie at the age that I'm at, because what George C. Scott is going through is not uncommon. You're right. And he's so electrifying throughout all of it. There's only a few moments where I start to feel the theater of it all, kind of stagey kind of dialogue, but that's Chayefsky. I accept that.
Yeah. No, that is what it is. That's like complaining that there's too many one-liners in Neil Simon. Well, that's who the fuck he is.
Yeah.
That's like saying Tennessee Williams is too gothic. Well, then what the fuck are you gonna do? All right, don't watch Sweetbird of Youth.
There's two things in this movie that potentially derailed the film for me and didn't. And one of them we'll talk about later. Maybe.
Yeah.
And that's Bernard Hughes's arc.
Yeah.
His whole arc. And the other one is Diana Rigg, who's the only other person other than George C. Scott, the only other actor other than George C. Scott credited in the opening credits. I am a massive Diana Rigg fan, like I know you are as well.
Absolutely.
And when she showed up in the movie, at first I was not so into her character. She was my least favorite character in it. But then on the power of George C. Scott, and her basically her interfacing with his rage was so brave and fearless as an actress. I see why she's given that credit next to Scott. She has to ride that wave.
Well, we need to describe this a little bit, especially for me to give my take on it. Is Scott is so perfect in this movie, and this is not just me keep throwing platitudes, but it's like the costume he wears in the film, the checkered shirt and the kind of soiled tie a little bit, he wears throughout the whole film. Everything seems perfect about that. His glasses seem perfect. The grease in his hair seems perfect. The mixture of dark and gray in his hair. Everything just seems...
And even when he cleans up, it's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah. He just he's the same guy, but with a coat of paint on him.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
He just watched the sleep out of his eyes.
Yeah.
Or he threw some cold water in his face and he actually woke up for a fucking second. In the film, it just, he's going through a terrible divorce from a terrible marriage. He's not the administrator. He's that, I guess he's the head doctor of the hospital.
He's like one of the head doctors. He's the guy who trains all of the residents.
Yeah.
He's basically the head doctor.
But the hospital is becoming a Byzantine farce, all right, of what a hospital should be.
I think they even say a Roman farce.
Yeah, well, he does call it a Roman farce at a certain point. He calls it a Roman farce on a terrible Gothic horror show.
The Gothic horror show, it is, for sure.
And, the whole thing in the hospital is like, people come in for minor situation and then this weird thing happens and this weird neglect thing happens and then somebody reads something wrong and the next thing you know, the guy's dead. Yeah. 5 days later, the guy's dead.
And and you know what? And if you can make that leap to believe that actually happens,
I bought it.
Then everything in the movie works.
Well, that's the part that's actually played the most realistically. Are those Byzantine things that happen? A guy comes in for a simple this, and then 3 days later he's in a coma because of neglect, not reading shit right, doing it wrong.
Just because the bureaucracy and the hospital itself has become so big, it can't control itself. It can't organize itself. The whole thing.
The bureaucracy
is making a metaphor for America.
The bureaucracy runs it. Yeah. All right. So when the bureaucracy is wrong, it doesn't know it's wrong. And because there's not a human being to write it.
And how can they organize? Because there's, in the meantime, there's a huge protest going on. The hospital is trying to expand so that it can expand. Yeah. But in its expansion, it's only becoming bigger and worse
and it's
of a monster, of an octopus.
And it's kicking residents.
It's destroying the neighborhood unintentionally in trying to save people.
So the thing is, so he carries all this around. He's suicidal. He's not only reeling from the divorce, he's reeling from the 20 years of the bad marriage.
Yeah.
He's estrangement from his children.
And he's coming to terms with everything. He's like, yeah, my kids, like, he doesn't like either of them.
Yeah.
He's a communist. She's like, and
it's just like
pregnant or some dude.
Everything kind of comes down on him, and then he's realizing this ridiculous situations that are happening in the hospital that just seem like Grand Guignol farce. And so then he's sitting in his office and he's contemplating suicide. Now, he has met Diana Rigg's character earlier on because her dad is in a coma that he shouldn't be in the hospital, and she wants to take him out. And he sees her talking with the doctor, and he even says, like, who's that? And they go, oh, well, that's this missionary who works with the Apaches who that thing happened. Then there's an Apache medicine man there who's doing a special dance for his father, and like George C. Scott has to give them the okay to do it. So he talks to Diana Rigg a little bit there, gets a sense of her, and gives her the okay.
Yeah, she convinces him it's not a medical thing, it's a religious practice.
It's a religious practice.
And that's how they can allow it to happen in the hospital.
And he's like, okay, fine. And then he has a small talk with her in her office, and then she leaves, and then he contemplates killing himself right then and there by shooting himself up with potassium. And so he actually draws the potassium.
Yeah, he does more than contemplate. Yeah. He's doing it.
In the syringe, he wraps up his arm to make the vein pop with his belt, and he's going to shoot himself up. And she just inexplicably walks back into the office and goes, hey, what are you doing? All right. She thinks he's getting high. But she's a nurse. She knows that potassium would kill him. And they proceed to have this big conversation that goes on and on. And
in classic George C. Scott form, he's like a volcano that's just slowly simmering, ready to explode.
He's absolutely a volcano. Also, Paddy Chayefsky is a volcano. This entire movie has been written to this scene. This is the scene where it will all erupt, both literary-wise and drama-wise, and George C. Scott-wise.
Yeah.
And she's provoking because he says he's impotent, but she actually can tell, well, no, I like you, I like middle-aged men. And he's getting drunker and drunker and drunker and drunker until finally, in a vodka-fueled drunken rage, he ravishes her, like rips her clothes off, forces himself on her, and actually proves that he's not impotent. Now, what you have to also understand in a lot of these movies when this happens is what Paddy Chayefsky is doing here and what they're doing as far as even telling the story. It's not about should somebody do this, should somebody not do this. This is all allegorical.
Even the crowds outside are allegorical.
It's an allegorical expression of lust and manhood that happens. It's a literary thing, ultimately. She actually did like him. It seemed like that was the aspect that she was trying to lure out of him to show him that he was and to provoke him like the bear that he is the way to do it. And it works. And then from that point on, then the movie is different. And then an interesting aspect is added to it where it almost becomes it borders on a silly romantic comedy. All right. Where it's like Diana Rigg is, look, I love you. You love me. So why don't you just leave all this behind, all your misery, and then just go with me to Mexico, and we'll live amongst the Apaches, and we'll just be together, and
we'll have a baby, and
we'll live life. And goes, I can't do that. What are you talking about? You almost killed yourself an hour ago. I'm offering you something else.
Now, I have to say, your delivery of that proposition to me is better than the movie presents, because to me, the movie becomes very stagey, theatrical for that one moment. It's the only moment that I really felt like I wasn't even sure I believed that in the film, that she wanted him to run off with her. Well, I'm in love with you, George C. Scott.
Well, there's an interesting thing here.
Growling, gristly, patchy bear, all angry and scarred.
Well, I actually think George C. Scott looks very virile in this movie.
Well, he does. He always looks virile. He looks
like he looks virile. Like he looks as virile in this as he does in The Last Run. All right. I took that at face value when I watched the movie. But I've been thinking about the hospital all weekend long.
Me too.
Since I saw it. And I think there's a case to be made of another reading of the movie. The whole movie builds to that middle scene between George C. Scott and Diana Rigg. Then it happens, and it changes everything. Now, admittedly, the events in what happens, him ravishing her and having this new lease on life and everything, those would be events that would change everything. But it doesn't just change everything as far as the events that are being portrayed. The entire movie is different after that. All the weird, absurd comedy that happens in the first half of the movie is still grounded in reality. Those little stories about how this patient came in for this and ended up this happening to them and that happening to them, and that all sounds very convincing. You buy it. You absolutely buy it. There's this killer going around killing doctors and nurses, and we see this going on throughout the film to some degree. After the second half, things are never grounded again. Things start becoming far more absurd. Things become far less plausible. Things are more hysterical than they were before.
Almost outlandish.
They're outlandish. Everything gets more surreal. Everything gets more out of control. I don't buy the things that are going on anymore. There is a reveal of who's doing these murders in the hospital. I didn't buy the reveal. I didn't buy the whole story about it. I didn't buy it. I just didn't buy it. I didn't find it plausible. I didn't buy it. Oddly enough, even when we watched it, that didn't bother me. Mm-hmm. You know, when you're somebody like Paddy Chayefsky, you're always swinging for the fence. And sometimes I'll go with you and sometimes I won't. But it doesn't ruin the whole game. But here's where I'm going with this. Over the week, I started thinking about it. I don't think Diana Rigg is real.
At all?
Here's what I think. I think he did see her in the hallway. You're in
gala territory.
No, I'm not. I think you can back it up. I think the movie backs it up. George C. Scott saw her talking, and he go, "Oh, who's that?" So she's somebody who caught his eye. Then he got together with her to give her the okay on the medicine man. So he got a sense of her, got a sense of how she talked and everything. Oh, she's British, got that. All right. Then they have their little scene, and then she leaves. I'm taking my father out, and that's it. Boom. That is it. She's left. That's it. She's gone from the movie. She's gone. She left his life. Boom. Then he goes. He gets the potassium. He wraps up his arm. He's about ready to commit suicide. And then inexplicably, an angel comes back. There's no reason for her to come back. She doesn't come up with a reason why she came back. Mm-hmm. She comes back. And she literally becomes an angel the moment she comes back. She literally saves George C. Scott in every way she can possibly save him. If we're to take him at face value, he was going to kill himself right there. So right there, by walking into the room, she saves his life. Then she proves to him that he is a man and that his impotency is based out of his own dissatisfaction. And so she brings him back to life as a man, as a living person, as somebody who actually cares about life. And I love you. And I want you to go with me. And we can live this love. This is what he wants. These are the things he doesn't have. And then this fantasy woman that he just had a small encounter with comes in and shows him this way.
And all she does is offer him a future that he will deny so that he can continue with the hospital.
Exactly. And now it makes sense that everything is so fucking crazy out of control because we are now being told the story. We are now, from the second point on, we're being told the story by an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, I mean, even that riot that's going on outside starts to feel like the riot in Inception.
Yes,
inside
exactly.
of the dream. It's like this weird abstract riot. He's just drank like a full bottle.
Absolutely. It's unrealistic that this angel can come in and cure all of his problems. He needed the catalyst of an angel for him to cure his own problems.
I mean, I like the movie more that way, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not certain that that's how it is. It seems as far-fetched as any of my highfalutin ideas that I come up with on movies. Having said that, I like it better. It gives me a nice escape valve for that scene between him and Diana Rigg, which I just felt impossible in some ways. Like because you're right.
I love you, you love me. Let's go together.
Let's go. And you're like, and suddenly that's the whole debate in the end. The problem I had with Bernard Hughes, and it evaporated after a while, because I started thinking about all the stuff they were saying about the hospital and how the bureaucracy means that nobody really knows what they're doing and nobody really cares. Everybody's just going, like, they're at the DMV. They may as well be working at the DMV. Yeah. They don't really care that you don't know who you're injecting with what. You're just told to do it, so you do it. Mm-hmm. You're here, you're there. You don't, people are coming and going. There's 100 doctors working there. Many of them aren't even permanently at the hospital. They just come and they work at the hospital. Mm-hmm. They do operations at the hospital, like Richard Dysart's strongly capitalistic character, who I actually loved I love Richard Dysart.
Me too.
From The Thing, but he's perfect in this role. When he gives that little tax speech.
Oh yeah, he's like, how to incorporate.
It was so realistic because I could not understand it.
Yeah.
It means it must have been real because I absolutely I can't understand those things. So I started thinking about it over the weekend. I was like, in the reality that they build this hospital and the statement that they're making about, American bureaucracy and corporate services for people, it's believable. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely believable that no one knows shit about what's going on at any given moment in that building. Mm-hmm. And that people are only there for the self-interest and and for the money, like Richard Dysart.
That just backs up your thoughts about.
Well, and then I gotta say,
of course you like this movie.
I gotta say George C. Scott does too, because right after this he goes and he does Rage. Right after this he does Rage. Yeah. Like he goes out and he's like, I got more in me. I got more lead in my pencil. And so he goes out. He's still pissed at doctors.
And he brings Bernard Hughes and the great Robert Walden with him.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody, hey guys, come on! I got more to say on this subject.
Right. Wasn't it great after Rage to see Robert Walden walking around again? It was so cool.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Have you ever wondered what the lead singer of Smash Mouth, Zach Goody, feels about new versus old guys in music and cinema? Or how photographer Toasty Cakes makes his cinematic discoveries? What about the opinion of Rotten Tomatoes editor Jacqueline Coley and what she considers to be the new Hollywood shift of the streaming era? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these very questions. Starting on October 26th, I have a new guest on the mic every week. Yes, every Thursday, hear your favorite filmmakers, photographers, actors, models, and more talk about a topic that is near and dear to their heart that they want you to know about. You'd be surprised at what people are interested in. The Gala Show premieres October 26th with new episodes every Thursday, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Now we're joined by the lovely Gala Avery. Gala, had you ever seen Hospital before?
I had never seen The Hospital. And
you such a big Paddy Chayefsky fan?
Me, my man Paddy Chayefsky. Those who know, Altered States changed my life. I love the book and I love the movie. Quentin, I'm kind of mad that I didn't think of that also. Like, to be honest, I think
that's your penchant.
Yeah, I know. I'm kind of mad that I wasn't the one that brought that to the table, because I think this might be one of my favorite discussions you guys have had, specifically because of that theory. Because that theory that you have fixes my issue with this movie, which is that reveal of, like, you killed God at that certain point. It's just, I didn't buy that, but I mean,
it all becomes very heady and New York playwright.
But what's interesting to me is the fact that I didn't buy that or care for it either, and it didn't affect my feeling on the movie.
Yes, I have a little heart. I have a little heart on my top corner. I loved this movie. When I was watching, I'm like, oh yeah, more medical malpractice, because I loved Coma.
You're like the only person I know who says, yeah, more medical malpractice. You should become an attorney.
Well, I loved Coma, and I'm watching this. I'm like, oh, this is like kind of like Coma for the boys. Like, it's like kind of like
it's Coma with George C. Scott losing his shoes
as opposed to Jean-Pierre Bougeot.
And I gotta say, I actually like this better than Coma, and I really, really like Coma.
That was one of your favorite movies.
It was one of my favorite movies, and I really, really like The Hospital. I wish that I remembered what Diana Riggs's dad says to George C. Scott, like when he goes to choke him. I wish I remembered because he says that line to him, like some religious line, and I feel like that could play into your theory, which evaporates all of my issues about the movie. It evaporates my issue about the end being wacky, and also I wanted them to be together in the end, and evaporates that issue as well.
I agree that there's a weirdness to the Diana Rigg character, and I started putting it under the microscope, and then it hit me on Saturday.
Well, regardless, there is a kind of supernatural oracle-like quality to Bernard Hughes' character because he seems to know everything that's going to happen, everything that has happened, everything that's going to happen, all the minutiae details. When he's talking about Richard Dysart's character, and you're like, they will assume that his partner in Brazil. Like
and it's absurd that this missionary from Mexico would know the intricacies of all these different doctors and nurses and what they did wrong to all these different people, not just him.
Yeah, it's like Exorcist 4. Or something in the hospital.
As Quentin and Roger said, the first half of the movie is really grounded in reality. If you want to know more about medical malpractice, I would recommend reading Gawande's book, Complications, A Surgeon's Notes on an Imperfect Science, which literally is just this movie. It's all of him being an intern into being a doctor of all the medical malpractice that he witnessed. And what happens to Diana Rigg's father is really normal. That you go in for a biopsy and then all of a sudden it's like you nick this and you nick that and then you're in a coma and then you die.
Happened to my mom.
Happens all the time. So, and also Groupman's How Doctors Think, if you really want to get into medical malpractice, for some reason I did. George C. Scott is so sexy in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm watching it, I'm thinking, God, he's just great. He's punchy. I mean, with Paddy Chayefsky's dialogue behind him, which the script for this movie, The Hospital, won the Academy Award that year for Best Screenplay, and it deserves it.
Deservedly so.
My favorite line in the movie, or there's a few, but one of my favorite lines that George C. Scott's yelling is, "Where do you train your nurses? Dachau?"
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah.
That is such a good line.
He tells that to Nancy Marchand, who's the head of the nursing staff. She was on The Sopranos.
And this movie, George C. Scott is literally just moving the entire movie. He's just going and it's so fluid. And of course, Victor Kemper, DP on this. Of course, our man Kemper is coming in hot with just...
His work is so good on this and so restrained and fantastic.
And I completely agree with you about how sexy George C. Scott is. I found it very believable that Diana Rigg was into him.
Oh, he's exploding with testosterone throughout the movie. And it's all bottled up and he's just like this. For a man who's playing it impotent.
Yeah.
He's so not impotent.
It's actually funny now that we have a George C. Scott impotent movie, we had a Rod Steiger impotent movie with Dirty Hands. So now we both got both of them being impotent.
Yes, exactly. And boy, they're the most
impotent brothers. Yeah.
They're the most testosterone rodeo bulls
of impotence
of all time.
I really liked the shaman sequence where the shaman is praying over her father. It's taking place during a thunderstorm, so it just has this mystic thing. And of course, I mean, the Chayefsky altered states connection with the Native Americans and indigenous people, and just the mysticism behind it. It's so Chayefsky. I love it. But my favorite part of that sequence is actually the black nurse.
Yeah,
she is that's the one part of the movie that I actually found funny.
The desk nurse who when she turns her head
Oh, the one
she actually waits to turn her head.
What are you trying to tell me?
Yeah, she's it's so funny because she gives it a beat and a half, maybe 2 beats, and then turns her head, and it's such a comic timing moment. It's great
because she hears that. The it's not a maraca, but the maraca. The shaker.
Yeah.
And her performance is the back of the box kind of makes it seem like it's an Arthur Hiller comedy, it's The In-Laws or something that it's super funny. Or it
is an Arthur Hiller comedy, but it's not like The In-Laws.
Yeah. I do think the first half is leaning into, as grim as everything they're describing, it's leaning into satire, mash style
it's
satire. It's
definitely satire. The back of the box to me kind of made it seem and then you have the woman that's trying to do this and this, it's almost like a buddy comedy. I don't know,
it's
an
that
it's
that rarity, a smart comedy.
But that black nurse shaman sequence was so funny to me.
Well, it's a thing they do constantly in the film. It's a character talks like a Paddy Chayefsky character. Blah 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 blah. What are you trying to tell me? Blah 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 blah. come again?
Yeah, they always, everything is done twice or 3 times for comic effect.
And by the way, to further my reading of the film, you will note, look, we expect George C. Scott to talk like a Paddy Chayefsky character. He's the lead in a Paddy Chayefsky script, and he's George C. Scott, who can handle dialogue as well as anybody who's ever lived. For the most part, the other characters don't talk like Paddy Chayefsky characters. They read out hospital jargon, but they don't talk in giant, 15-minute monologues until we get to Diana Rigg in the middle, and later with Bernard Hughes.
Yeah, Bernard Hughes.
But again, it's literally one of the things that's like, oh, finally he meets a character who sounds like him, who talks like him.
And Diana Rigg, she's so cool. Like, I wanted to be her. I was like watching her, like how she talks and stuff. And I'm like, man, I wish I was a Paddy Chayefsky character. She's just so like sure of herself, and how she interfaces, as Roger said, like with George C. Scott. Like, it's really difficult to do when he's that volcanic and he's really erupting on screen. She just does such a good job.
We were talking about other people that I think.
Yeah, Quentin threw out some really good alternate casting ideas.
I think I came up with a better one, though. And I think it's one of the reasons why they went with Diana Rigg. I think she was supposed to be British. I'm sure when Paddy Chayefsky was writing it, he was writing it for Julie Christie.
Oh, yeah. Because before you mentioned Diane Keaton.
Yeah, I did.
Which I thought was a great casting choice as well.
But I bet you they never got off of the Julie Christie idea. And so they say, well, let's keep it British. And either Julie Christie turned it down or they decided not to, because George C. Scott and Julie Christie are in Petulia together. Mm-hmm. And they said, maybe let's not do a Petulia reunion.
Well, Diana Rigg rises to the occasion, and during that rape, it was just so weird to see the juxtaposing of him trying to be violent, like trying to do like a violent rape, and her kind of, she's making love.
Yeah.
She's like caressing him and holding his face, and it was just like these. It was jarring, watching those two clash together.
She's giving herself to him, but she's also comforting him. I mean, she's like,
she wants him.
She's provoked this.
Yeah, I mean, in today's day and age, it was just it's startling and shocking to see.
And I know, Dad, you have a problem with that scene afterwards where it's like, I love you, love me.
Just because it feels a little stagey to me.
It does feel a little stagey, but I like the moment where it's like he's kind of, afterwards she leaves and he's grumbling and he opens up the window and he's like, okay, God damn it, I do love you, okay? Like, he just like calls out
I have less of a problem. I have less of a problem with that now that I've heard an alternate potential, but also Roger Avery style reading, Gala Avery style reading.
But I will also say I kind of like that. No, I want you to quit and you go with me. I like the fact that all of a sudden it threw a fun little plot into the movie. Everything has been so fucking grim. And now it's just as simple as like, look, you were going to kill yourself yesterday, so then why not run off with me for a romantic idol? What do you got to fucking lose?
Well, also, what I like in that scene, though, is what she tells him is like, you can be a doctor down in Mexico. Like, they really need you there. You can be a doctor again. Because he's at that crossroads where he isn't really practicing medicine anymore. He is just training all these other doctors. And it's just like, he's not really doing what his passion is.
I actually really like his justification after that, where she's like, you could make a difference. He's like, what, you think I'm not making a difference here in the biggest hospital in what are they, in New York? In New York?
And then she just always goes, but you just tried to kill yourself. Because of how useless you felt.
That is a really fun little dynamic.
For those of you that watch the movie before the episode comes out, you should watch it again with Quentin's reading. I think I'm going to go home and I'm going to watch it again with your reading because I think your reading is right. And for those of you that haven't seen the movie yet, go in and witness and experience and have fun. Don't
experience and have fun.
I mean, I had a lot of fun during this movie.
It's a fun movie.
Don't stream this on Amazon because there is an audio desync issue. I've reported it to the website. Hopefully by the time this episode comes out, it is fixed, but there's nothing worse. It's happened to me once or twice before on the platform, but there's nothing worse. Instead, you should stream this on Vudu, VUDU. They actually have a high def quality, but really you should get the Key Home Video.
I agree. The Key Home Video was fantastic.
I got mine for $25 from Frankie Latina's Video Vault.
Frankie Latina.
And I will read that the tape number at Video Archives. This was in the comedy section under H, and the tape number is 2373.
First Geronimo, then Cochise, and now the bloodiest Apache of them all. Ulzana.
What do you think Ozana's intentions are?
Their probable intention is to burn, maim, torture, and murder.
Where will he fight us?
You don't mean to fight you no place, Lieutenant. He only means to kill you.
Burt Lancaster in Ulzana's Raid.
Ulzana's Raid with Cohitz, The Hospital, and Steel will be playing for 2 nights on Tuesday, May 2nd and Wednesday, May 3rd at the New Beverly Cinema. Don't miss this Video Archives triple feature the way that Quentin and Roger intended it. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For tickets and more information, visit thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema. Always on film.
And we're back with our second film. Our second film that we've done on the show so far, directed by Robert Aldrich. And this is his 1972 Western, Ozana's Raid, starring Burt Lancaster and Bruce Davidson, Richard Jekyll, and Jorge Luke. I've always been a big fan of Ozana's Raid. It's written by Alan Sharp, who wrote the script for The Last Run that we had done earlier. He also wrote the script for Night Moves and for another really terrific Western called The Hired Hand. And Ozana's Raid has always kind of been my favorite script of his. The Last Run might be competing with it now because I really held on to The Last Run since we watched it again.
Damnation Alley.
Well, yes.
It's just one of my childhood ecstatic experiences.
I'm down for
every time I hear Alan Sharp, I have to scream out Damnation Alley.
I'm down with us watching Damnation Alley sometime. Okay, so here is the me reading the back of the box for Ozana's Raid. Violence begets violence in this explosive Western that pits marauding Apaches against wary Indian fighters and naive U.S. cavalrymen. Burt Lancaster stars in this sharply written, fact-based story as a scout assigned to aid the cavalry in tracking down Ozana and his band of renegade Indians. As the trail gets hotter, Lancaster attempts to teach an idealistic young lieutenant that the only way to fight the Apaches' escalating brutality and violence is with even stronger force. Robert Aldrich directs this gritty action epic sure to excite both the senses and the intellect. And you would find this in the Western section under you. So I've always been a big fan of Ozana's Raid for a couple different reasons. One, I really like the script. I love a lot of the performances in the film. But one of the things that I really appreciate the most is Alan Sharp was he's a Scottish writer, and he's one of the foremost authorities of screenwriters when it came to the history of the American West, and especially of the realities of the U.S. Cavalry Apache Wars. And now, one of the things about Robert Aldrich from the late 60s on is he was very affected by the Vietnam War. He never made a Vietnam War movie per se, but he dealt with the Vietnam War in like a few of his films. Dirty Dozen has a Vietnam aspect. It's one of the reasons that why the film was so popular, because it has a very anti-military aspect at a time that there was a high anti-military aspect to the country because of the war. Ozana's Raid is a complete Vietnam allegory, as was other Indian blue coat westerns of that time. Little Big Man was another one, and Ralph Nelson's Soldier Blue is another one. And then he goes and makes Twilight's Last Gleaming, which is just a movie where he can just vent his entire feelings about the Vietnam War. Now, there was a lot of Vietnam allegories made in the first half of the 70s because for whatever reason they weren't allowed to make. No one wanted to actually commit to actually making a real movie about Vietnam.
Too soon.
Yeah. And in a world where Ciro H. Santiago has 30 movies made about Vietnam, watching Vietnam War allegories seem a little quaint. The exception to me is Ozana's Raid. I think it's one of the most realistic movies about the Apache Wars and the U.S. Cavalry. this is really a war movie. It's not really a Western. This takes the Apache Wars as a genuine military conflict. And it matches up to the whole idea of the Vietnam War because with the Apaches, like the Vietnamese, you have a guerrilla army.
Yeah, they're terrorists, basically.
You have a guerrilla army fighting using the terrain in a way that only they know how, a terrain that they know backwards and forwards, against a giant military machine that only has shock and awe at its disposal. But in a guerrilla war, shock and awe can be just as much a hindrance as anything else. The Apaches are coming from the same place the Vietnamese are coming from. We are resistance fighters fighting the occupying army.
This is our home.
And the only thing, to put as much death and blood and suffering on the occupiers is the goal. Now, Ozana's Raid tells the particular story of a bunch of Indians living on the reservation in Arizona, and they've long since given up their freedom, long since moved to the agency, what they call them, the agency, long since moved to being fed by the agency, long since moved to the reservation. And Ozana, and it's suggested about maybe 9 to 12 other Apaches went with him to go off on a raid. Now, a raid is to go and literally, they're on their way to Mexico, and they're going to burn, rape, murder, and pillage everybody that comes in their path on their course to Mexico.
And they have such a reputation of commitment to the terror that they inflict that people in this reality are so terrified of encountering them or being caught with them that they would rather shoot themselves dead than fight a bunch of screaming Apaches.
Yeah, or more to be captured by a bunch of screaming Apaches. And what's going to happen to
nothing is worse than that. They will play with you for fun.
Yeah, nothing.
And by play with you, I mean they will vivisect you slowly for fun.
And the point is made very clearly that Ulzana is just a regular Indian. He's not some like great warrior. He's not this like legendary chief. No, he's just, it's described very well by Jorge Luke as Kinete in the film. It's like, nah, he's just a man he's got the agency smell in him. He has the smell of the dog. He has the smell of the woman. He has the smell of the agency clothes. He has the smell of this. He needs new smell. He needs the smell of fire. He needs the smell of burning. He needs the smell of blood. He needs the smell of the horses. So Ozana goes off on his raid. And so a young know-nothing lieutenant straight out of West Point, played by Bruce Davidson, is assigned the task of going out, capturing and apprehending Ozana and his people and bringing them back. And he's given an extremely experienced Indian scout in the guise of Burt Lancaster, playing a character named McIntosh, who understands the terrain and understands the Apaches in a way that Bruce Davidson or none of the other bluecoats that are after them have an understanding of. And Burt Lancaster has his own assistant, which is an Apache working with him named Kinete, played by the famous Mexican movie star Jorge Luke, who's just fantastic in the film. And so it's this posse, basically. The army's more of a posse than anything else. But, it's a true military conflict because they can't quite catch them the way that they're going. And then the smallness of the Apaches and their brutality towards situations are going to always give them the slight edge.
Aldrich sets this up so that we understand like all the military action as it plays out. He explains that the reason they can do what they can do and get the distance they can is because they will drive their horses into the ground and then they'll just steal more and then continue on.
And then,
for example, they'll use unconventional means to achieve what they need to achieve.
It's very interesting because Ozana is very much like a general plotting and scheming and strategizing. But for the most part, so is Burt Lancaster, and it's very interesting when there becomes a break in the strategy. And hey, that could kind of work.
Yeah. It's good. And Burt Lancaster, from his perspective, it's like we are playing a kind of three-dimensional chess type game, and one false move, you die.
Yeah.
You know, one false move, he gets us.
Yeah.
And so he's constantly using his experience and his understanding.
They make the mistake
of the Apache people.
They make the mistake. Well, we're going to just keep on going until somebody makes a mistake. And when somebody makes a mistake, they're going to die.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
So I've been a big fan of this movie for a long time, and I was happy to finally get a chance to show it to you. Roger, what did you think of Ozana's Raid?
I was absolutely blown away because I was not expecting. I mean, I know Aldrich is a director of, you know, masculine brutality, that he's good at that, but I wasn't really expecting him to embrace it so deeply. Mm-hmm. And like, there came that moment where I couldn't believe what my eyes were looking at when he was showing the extent to which the Apaches would go in, like, you know, cutting somebody up.
And they're shock and awe.
Ripping out their heart and then throwing it around like a softball and playing with it. Like, they're just having fun. That's just their way of having fun. And so I wasn't really prepared. I was as prepared as Bruce Davison. I heard Bruce Davison in an interview on the Blu-ray or the DVD. He gave a hilarious story, which was like a total like story that would happen with Roger Avery. Like, he, when he first met with Robert Aldrich, he was young and he was such a big fan and he was just so excited. And it's like, he's just like this young kid and he's meeting with Robert Aldrich, who's like one of his heroes, and he meets with them and he's like, "Oh, sir, I just have to tell you, I am your biggest fan. I loved the Sand Pebbles." And Robert Aldrich says, "Wow, that's fine, kid, except that was directed by Robert Wise. You got the job." And it was because he later told him, he said, "It's because you were innocent and an asshole all at once. Like, you didn't know enough to be smart about it." And that's who this kid is.
Well, you know,
it was a total Roger moment. Like, I would have absolutely done that. Like,
congratulated Brian De Palma on the King Kong remake.
Congratulations on King Kong. I would have completely made that boneheaded mistake. But that was what got him the part, because his character is meant to. He's there because he wants to be there.
No, Robert Aldrich is
he's foolishly. They're like, "Oh, I'm sorry you got sacked with this this detail, kid. You're out here in, you know, Apache country." "Oh no, I wanted to see action." Like, "You did?" Yeah. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to send you after Ulzana." "Thank you, sir. It's not a present."
"Don't thank me. I'm not doing you any favors." He keeps thanking everybody. Okay, stop that. All right.
And so the idea, taking that Bruce Davison character and then, you know, clashing him with, like, I mean, coming off of George C. Scott, another man of, you know, heroic levels of testosterone, you know, Lancaster, who's just incredible on screen, you know, in downplaying everything. He's so incredible on screen. You know, Bruce Davison is, you know, getting uppity and dancing around and complaining and
one of my favorite
showboating.
Like, one of my favorite lines that Burt Lancaster has in the film is they're trying to figure out how far ahead Ozana is, and they have a horse apple, and they're picking it up, and Kenete, the Indian scout, is there. Burt Lancaster, "Well, Kenete says this horse apple is about 4 hours old, so that means that they're, you know, 4 hours ahead up there." He goes, "Well, do you agree with him?" "I'm not going to argue with an Apache about horse shit. He wrote the book."
You know, there were moments in this that I'm sure the Coen brothers, when they did Buster Scruggs, must have like been in love with Ozana's Raid.
I can imagine the Coen brothers having a healthy appreciation for Ozana's Raid,
because that depiction of what it must be like to encounter terror, true terror, like those Apaches coming at you, he captures in this. This is a very real, harsh reality. This is the real world. This movie is based on, you know, real characters. Takes place in around 1886. Grover Cleveland, I think, was president at the time. He comes in a long line of banker presidents, and, you know, who are just wanting to push west and, you know, open up those lands for development. And so Aldrich captures this world and he infuses it super brightly, and it feels intensely contemporary to me.
Now, oddly enough, Ozana's Raid has a bit of a companion piece in another movie. And that's a movie from the late 70s called Go Tell the Spartans.
Oh, yeah.
Which was like the second of the big Vietnam movies that came out. First one was, which is magnificent, Boys and Company C.
Mm-hmm.
Go Tell the Spartans was the second one. It too stars Burt Lancaster. And it's directed, it's like the closest thing that Ted Post, the kind of hacky action director, closest thing he ever did to like an art film. But it matches up with Ozana's Raid because to one degree or another, the general or the colonel that Burt Lancaster plays seems like the Macintosh character. Also, Ozana's Raid is a Vietnam War allegory made about the U.S. cavalry conflict with the Indians. Go Tell the Spartans is a Western Indian military allegory played out in Vietnam.
It's like
it literally is
the mirror image.
It literally
of this movie.
is the flip side. I will say something I've loved Ozana's Raid. I've been on record for loving Ozana's Raid. I even wrote a review for it for the New Beverly website. I've been wanting to show it to you for a long time. I liked it a little less this time than I have before. I think the scene with the German rancher left to his own, I think that's a corny scene. I think that actor is a corny actor. I think the way he plays it in a corny way.
He plays it like a German immigrant.
Yeah. Well, that guy's famous for that. Guy is in a zillion westerns, and he's always he's the Dutch.
Yeah, he always plays the Dutch guy.
Yeah, he's the Dutch guy. He's the German guy. He's the Swedish guy. He's the Swedish gunsmith. All right, Carl Svensson, I think is his name. But also the woman who's saved from the Apaches and her washing it off. Oh, I have to wash it off. It's all done in this corny, heightened way that is Peckinpah wouldn't do that.
Well, that's why the moments of extreme violence were so intense to me, because the movie feels like a kind of older style film, and then suddenly it has these strikingly modern.
Well, Lancaster's not corny, and Richard Jekyll isn't corny. All right,
he's great.
Yeah, but there's like Lloyd Bachner is in it, and he's a cornball. All these guys, it's and also Aldrich was not helped by his lovely associates, because that was like their credit. The associates in Aldrich was not always helped as the 60s went into the 70s by his associates. They kept him in a style of filmmaking that is more 62 than 72. Music by Duvall. Duvall's terrible. All right. I don't like Joseph Broccoli, his cinematographer, at all. It just looks like television. It's better. Ozana's Raid is better than most because God's your fucking gaffer out there in Arizona. Nevertheless, he doesn't do him any favors. But by comparison, you look at how Don Siegel in the 60s went through a corny period too, when he was basically just making TV movies for Universal. But then his group of associates, Bruce Surtees on the camera, Lalo Schifrin as a cinematographer, Dean Reisner and Howard Rodman as writers, they took Siegel into the 70s. He was still a modern filmmaker. Dirty Harry is completely and utterly a modern film. All right. And there's no corny elements to it, and not like this. All right. But so that's a situation where those, where the associates can actually take a director, move them over to a new generation, move them to a new style of filmmaking. That didn't happen with Aldrich. And I've never felt that way about Ozana's Raid, but after seeing it 12 times or so, watching it the last time, that still corny thing is still kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, the only clumsy moment I felt, lost opportunity, and as you're talking about that actor, the
Carl Svensson, but the moment where he hears the bugle and he's lulled to the outside, and we kind of know what's happening. Well, we get it.
But then forget
about that. They stretch it out.
But then with all the dedication to viscera that Aldrich is giving us, he robs us of that moment, which is, I mean, should have been a great moment. And then he tries to use the next shot, which is a shot of the horse of the bugle.
And that's just clumsy.
And it's just clumsy. The bugle is not being used because it's on the guy's hip, so they're not there. But like
But
that was really lame.
That's clumsy filmmaking, and that's not clear to an audience what he was trying to do.
I had to struggle myself too.
Yeah, I've seen it a bunch of times, so I knew what he was trying to do, but he didn't do it. And also, it's a real cop-out in that scene because that's the one of the random incidences that you get to see from beginning to end. Yeah. So it's not that you just wanted to see gruesomeness, even though I have no problem with that. It was, I wanted to see it taken to its logical conclusion.
Well, yeah,
not just told in the aftermath.
This is supposedly happening at every farmstead from there to Mexico.
I wanted that entire vignette played out to one degree or another from beginning to end, not just see an aftermath.
Yeah, I agree.
And we're back, and we're now joined by the lovely Gala Avery. So, Gala, what did you think of Ozana's raid?
Well, this was my very first time watching it. And I have to ask, because we talked a lot about it in the Choir Boys in our discussion on Aldrich. This is like when he had Aldrich Studios, right? Or
No. He had just lost Aldrich Studios.
So he had just lost it.
This was his, I need to do something to get back in the game.
Yeah, and which is, I'm glad you actually bring that up, because it actually is one of the strong points about the movie, is Aldrich made so much money on The Dirty Dozen that he was able to buy his own studio, which is Aldrich Studios. And then he proceeded to do 4 or 5 movies that nobody was interested in, nobody went and saw. And he ended up losing the studio. This is him throwing his hat back in the ring with the kind of movie you would imagine Robert Aldrich would do, a tough, gritty, violent Western starring an Eisenhower actor like Burt Lancaster. This is him currying favor to get back in the studios after going his own way. And he still makes a very uncompromising, very tough movie. This is not some John Wayne vehicle. This is not a Burt Kennedy movie. This is strong stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing I've really enjoyed working on the podcast so far is whenever we have a Western, it's like we've covered like spaghetti Westerns. We've covered, Rustler's Rhapsody is like a play on 40s Westerns and Kitty Matinees, et cetera, et cetera. So watching Ulzana's Raid, I'm like, okay, well, this is clearly like a 70s Western. It's like really early 70s, 72. But like it doesn't feel like a 70s Western to me. And I think that's what you were talking about earlier with Aldrich. It's like he is kind of not stuck in 62, but he's still kind of back there a little bit.
He's still kind of back there a little bit. He's making really rough movies for 1962.
Well, yeah, honestly, that sequence where I'm not going to describe the whole thing, but I was a little bit not like asleep, but I was like sitting there thinking, okay, it's like a Western, like I'm getting into it. And then that sequence where it's like, soldier, soldier, don't leave me. And it's the woman on the wagon and she starts shrieking.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I actually gasped audibly. I almost couldn't watch. My hand, I found myself holding my breath with my hand over my mouth at just the brutal violence that ensued. Like it woke me up and I was like, okay, this is what I'm in for in this movie. And it was shocking. It did not disappoint. That scene is like a standout scene for me.
And the stunts in this are absolutely
the horse stunts.
Well, even beyond the horse stunts, there's that guy getting clotheslined off of the horse, where he literally rides at full speed and gets clotheslined and flips over and like lands into the dirt,
the dirt and rocks,
the dirt and rocks. Like you see him hit the ground, and it's like, holy cow! Okay. I was going to complain about all the tripwires on horses and how intense that is to watch with my sensibilities today. But the people are going through the exact same stuff. Aldrich is putting everybody through that that level of stunts.
There's not a horse that doesn't get shot in this movie that doesn't do a fucking somersault.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. It's hard to watch it sometimes, and then it's also like wow, there is a commitment to getting it in this.
It's weird. I thought running W's were outlawed by 72. All right,
this could have just been very skilled laydowns, without wires.
No,
There's that one somersault that goes like down the hill.
No.
I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt.
The ass does not go up into pointing at a satellite.
Yeah. So if you have sensitivity to that sort of seeing that, then this might not be the movie you want to tune into. Well, at least know what you're getting into.
Look, it wasn't against the law back then, so that's what it is. But But I thought it was against the law by 72. I mean, maybe they shot it in Mexico, all right, where they were able to, they'd be able to do it. But that doesn't sound right. I'm sure they shot it in Arizona.
I think actually, when I was researching, they did shoot in Arizona, New Mexico, I think.
This is a big studio film with Burt Lancaster. If it's outlawed, they're not doing it.
Bruce Davidson's character, I found him very endearing because it's like he is just like the good Christian that just believes that like the good is out there and stuff, and like he still has problems killing.
Yeah, he wants to be like a good Christian to the people who want to kill him in the worst way possible.
Yeah, and he wants to give them all Christian burials, which in his heart is a good thing, but obviously that's not what the Apaches want.
Yeah.
So.
And then,
it's like a good thing, except he keeps assigning Jorge Luca to do it. Like, you have the Indian bury these, give them a Christian burial. Does that make sense?
Well, it's an interesting dynamic he has because Bruce Davidson, because he wants to be the thinking man, and he wants to be the compassionate person, and he wants to be the son of the minister. Well, at the same time being a cavalry officer.
It goes from being a cadet to a warrior.
Yeah. But then he's so appalled by what he sees in the aftermath that the Apaches leave that he turns into the biggest Apache hater in the course of it. He completely switches personality at a certain point.
War by its nature will turn you into a fascist.
And his little journey is part of the growth of the movie. It's actually very interesting because Aldrich talks about it. For instance, the character of DeBoone, which is the Bruce Davidson character, goes, the character of DeBoone, for instance, in Ozana's raid, he's wrong and he does a bunch of shit the audience doesn't like, but you never really hate him because it's not clear he doesn't know shit. He just doesn't know what's going on. He's in over his head. He doesn't know.
He knows as much as anybody in the audience probably knows.
Yeah.
He's our eyes into the movie. We go in, wanting good out of the world, and then we realize, no, the world is a hard place.
But I think there is an aspect, like from watching it with some other friends of mine at times, is like when Bruce Davidson punishes Kinete, all right, for what the other Apaches did by taking his horse away and making him run. With all the shit Ozana does, you actually hate Bruce Davidson more for doing that than any of the murders that happened earlier in the film.
Yeah.
It's funny. Bruce Davidson talks about Joaquin Martinez, who plays Ulzana.
Yeah.
I love this.
And what a fabulous actor he was. He's a Latino actor, and how much he loved being with them. And he said, he was great. He would say things like, sometimes people get too big and they want refried beans flown in from Guadalajara. I thought that was an amazing quote. Not me. I'm level-headed.
So as the back of the box said, this is loosely based on real events that occurred. So I did just like a little bit of digging, just scratched the surface. I'm sure there's lots more that can be said about this. But Ozana's raid is actually based on a real Tsokanede Apache warrior named Ulzana, whose nickname's also translated to tanned buckskin or the big buckskin. In November 1885, Brigadier General George Crook had been pursuing Apache war parties that were led by Geronimo and Chief Chihuahua. Cook learned that 11 of these Apaches were being led by Chihuahua's brother, Ulzana. Ulzana had split off from the larger group, eluded Crawford, and raced past the soldiers who had been placed along the Mexican-American border. So he enacted his raid, and also just sheer terror, with only 11 Mogollon warriors, rode 12,000 miles, killed 36 Pinda and Mexicans, terrified settlers, cowboys, miners, stole stock, and made fun of 2,000 soldiers before he was captured. During the raid, he only lost one soldier who was actually killed by a fellow Apache and escaped to Mexico. He surrendered in December along with his brother Chihuahua and also Chief Nana, and he was kept on reservation until 1909 when he died. The movie is like an amalgamation of this clearly because it's like how it plays out. But I liked this fact, though, that he only lost one soldier who was actually killed by a fellow Apache because I think it plays really well into how they chose to wrap up Ulzana's raid in the end of this without giving too much away. I thought that was kind of like a nice historical nod to the real history of what happened.
I also thought it was really interesting that Jorge Luca's character, Kinete, I don't want to say he's the traitor to the Apache.
Well, he is.
But he's kind of the traitor to the Apache, and he's kind of the hero of the movie also.
No,
and then by the very end, we realize this might be personal for him. That he's the brother-in-law?
He's the brother-in-law.
He's the brother-in-law
of Ozana.
of Ulzana. And so when they meet up in the end, I get the feeling like maybe he's less of a traitor than I thought he was while watching the movie.
I still think he's a traitor. I mean, look, I think he's one of the coolest characters in the movie, and I think the movie even knows that. There is an aspect. It's one of the things I like about the story. Burt Lancaster is obviously your star, and Bruce Davidson is obviously kind of your lead character, so to speak. Like the character's going to change.
Your window to the world.
Yeah, but you really kind of dig this Kinete character standing off to the side with his
handsome and long hair
and his uncanny ability to figure they can't do anything unless Kinete tells them what time it is.
And his desert wisdom that he gives out.
Unless he tells them what time it is.
But that's the truth.
It's so funny though.
No, we're gonna have to wait here 45 minutes till Kinete comes back because he's the only one that can read the fucking tracks. All right? But then as it goes into its third act, Kinete starts becoming more important. And then they purposely, in a really great Alan Sharp way, he's very good at that, of having a character get shot or something. And then, no, it's not just a little thing. No, it's going to fuck them up. Yeah, it doesn't matter if, I'm not talking about anything in this movie, but it doesn't matter if a character gets shot in the leg. He could die for that, all right? Mm-hmm. He's not going to die today, but he's going to die like 8 days from now.
Yeah,
that's a common thing in an Alan Sharp Western script. And so in a really cool way, Burt Lancaster gets waylaid in a really exciting event that happens in the third act, which allows Kinete to literally take over the lead of the movie. He becomes the hero of the film in the third act.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about Burt Lancaster and Robert Aldrich's relationship with each other, because I'm sure, as we all know, Burt Lancaster also stars in Apache, where he actually plays an Apache, who is the last Apache, and I think he's versus the Cherokee in that movie.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm watching this on the Kino Lorber Blu-ray. The Blu-ray has several special features on it. One is an audio commentary with film critic Nick Pinkerton, which I did not listen to yet. There is a Trailers from Hell, shout out to Joe Dante, with John Landis. And then there's this interview with Bruce Davidson. Okay, so...
Which was super entertaining.
Which was really entertaining. But then Bruce Davidson starts talking about the falling out that Burt Lancaster...
I can tell you about this. I know
about this.
You never. Okay, tell us about it, because he apparently never spoke to him again.
Yeah, apparently he never spoke to him again. So I was really curious about this, especially with... Apparently it was over the edit. That's what he said.
He hated the ending, because then Bruce Davidson later comments on... Yeah, Burt and I used to sit around and talk about how great it would be to have like this big vista ending. The cavalry is going by, a big Kubrickian shot. He actually said Kubrickian shot. And, showing this magnificent vista, and, Burt would be laying there, and, the cavalry would be going by this big shot. And instead it's, a shot of, it's a close up of a cigarette.
On the close of the cigarette, which
barely getting into his mouth.
Which I thought was like a really weird thing to end it on. So Quentin, what do you know about this?
Yeah, tell us.
Well, it's not that they never talked to each other again, all right? Because they did Twilight's Last Gleaming.
Yeah, there you go.
2 movies later, all right? So
Bruce,
there you go.
Bruce Davidson.
There you go with that, all right? Robert Aldrich was one of the great first ADs of all time. He had a producing partner and writer, Ben Hecht, I believe it is. Harold Hecht or Ben Hecht.
Ben Hecht, yeah.
So they started a company, Lancaster, Aldrich, and Hecht Productions. And so they did Apache together. Robert Aldrich had already done a few films by this point in time, but Apache's his first real movie that was a hit with a big star. Then they followed it up with Aldrich's biggest movie at that time, which was Vera Cruz, which was a big smash for both Lancaster and Aldrich. And also stars Gary Cooper, and Ernest Borgnine's in it, Charles Bronson's in it. It's a terrific film. Real predecessor to the spaghetti westerns. During Vera Cruz, because Lancaster was one of the producers of it, him and Aldrich started having problems because Lancaster really wanted to be a director at this point.
Okay.
And Lancaster, it started really taking over Lancaster's career, that he really wanted to direct. And since he felt he'd given Aldrich the shot with Vera Cruz, he started imposing more ideas on him until Aldrich couldn't handle it anymore. And so after Vera Cruz was over, that was it. They split up. Then Lancaster directed a film called, I'm looking at it right now, in the Kentuckian. All right, in the under the keep going. There you go. That's it. Okay, so Lancaster...
Gala just reaches over and pulls it from the shelves.
The Western section is right behind me.
Yeah. So he directed this movie called The Kentuckian, which is only okay. It has one terrific shot in it. But anyway, after Lancaster got a chance to direct his own movie, then he stopped kind of being so demonstrative about the directors doing his movies. And so they hadn't worked together throughout all the 60s, and then comes the 70s, then they worked together on Ozana's Raid. And it was a big deal, Lancaster coming back. And he wanted the role. He really, really wanted the role. And so he wanted to, make things right with Aldrich. And then they proceeded to, I can believe that they disagreed about the ending, but they, literally, they worked together again 3 years later in 1977. Well, 4 years later with Twilight's Last Gleaming.
This is not available for streaming, as far as I can tell. I'm sure someone out there will send me a link and say, hey, it is available on this website. But I picked up a Kino Lorber Blu-ray, and it is really gorgeous. So if you don't have...
I actually would like to borrow that Blu-ray
well,
so I can listen to the Bruce Davidson interview and maybe even listen to the commentary track.
Yeah, there you go, Quentin. You may definitely borrow it.
Yeah, he quotes Aldrich, and one of my favorite quotes is, "The actors will step out of the hot burning lights." That was how he would end a shot.
At one point when I was watching the Blu-ray, Roger walked by and he said, wow, the VHS really looks like the Blu-ray.
The VHS actually was shockingly good.
Yeah, and so...
Beautiful.
Universal. The Universal did good transfers, man.
Yes. Yeah. So I picked up an MCA VHS just like the one in Video Archives for $25 from Frankie Latino's Video Vault.
Again, Frank Latina.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're actually kind of cheating here. We did not watch it on video. We watched it on Laserdisc, and it was gorgeous.
Yes.
Well, that's why it
looks... That's right. Actually, yeah, now that you mention it, that's why.
You didn't tell me that part.
That's why. You know what? You're right. You're right. But it had that weird side thing like...
That wasn't his problem.
Yes.
Steel with Co-Hits, The Hospital, and Ulzana's Raid will be playing for 2 nights on Tuesday, May 2nd and Wednesday, May 3rd at the New Beverly Cinema. Don't miss this Video Archives triple feature the way that Quentin and Roger intended it. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For tickets and more information, visit thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema, always on film.
Okay, and now we're back for our third feature, and we're going to do something a little different this time. So what happens is, as you might have gathered from some of our shows, we finished taping the episode, and then sometimes we watch a movie afterwards. So we had finished taping our episode last weekend, and I had a couple of brand new exploitation film prints that came in. And so I asked Roger and Gala if they wanted to stay and watch one of them. And we ended up watching 2. So one of them was we watched American Commandos, Bobby Suarez from the One-Arm Executioner. Me and Roger, Gala had already gotten us, what was it, the Lightning Home video or the...
Yeah, I think it was Lightning.
Yeah, the Lightning Home video. So we'd actually watched it already on video, and we enjoyed it. But then I had the prints. We have to watch the print, and Gala hadn't seen it.
No, I had actually
seen it.
Seen it,
yeah.
but in terrible 240p YouTube.
So the other film that we watched is a film I'd seen a couple times at the theaters when it came out, a film called Steel, as in S-T-E-E-L, Steel, Iron Girder Steel, which was a big starring vehicle for Lee Majors. Now, you have to understand, Lee Majors was a big superstar in the 70s on television because of the $6 million.
He's basically coming right off of $6 Million Man when he made this.
This is pretty much his big leap out after $6 Million Man. So he was a superstar because of Big Valley and $6 Million Man. Then he's married to Farrah Fawcett Majors, and she becomes
makes
huge.
him only more famous.
And then they start Fawcett Majors production. And so the 2 Fawcett Major productions that Farrah did was her first big studio film since she became a star was a movie called Somebody Killed Her Husband, where the romantic comedy with her and Jeff Bridges, directed by Lamont Johnson. And then the second one is a fairly decent, I wouldn't mind doing it on the show, private detective comedy called Sunburn with her and Charles Grodin and Art Carney. So Lee Majors two big movies that he was doing through Fawcett Major Productions is Steel, which I think was supposed to be the big one. And then following that up with Killerfish.
Yeah, Killerfish.
Yeah, which was an Italian production directed by Antonio Margheriti. And then he Majors went to Canada and did two movies that both got released. One was a dystopian, futuristic race car movie called The Last Race.
Yeah.
All right, him and Burgess Meredith and a bunch of Canadian actors. And then another kind of Michael Crichton style movie called Agency about ad agencies affecting our minds. And it's like Lee Majors.
That would never happen.
Yeah, Lee Majors, Valerie Perrine,
Far-fetched.
and Robert Mitchum. Anyway, I think Steel has a storyline, but a B++ production. It's a bit of a B movie, but they have a lot of money to spend, so it's got a big cast. They're spending
It's like a
money
who's who of TV. It's like the character actors that you've seen in everything.
Absolutely. And they've got the money to spend on the movie, you know, to nothing about it seems rushed. It seems like they had the time to do it right.
Yeah, they're doing a location shoot in St. Louis.
However, unfortunately, this was obviously meant to be a big thing. And I even remember posters for the Steel poster up. But something happened along the way. And I think it's just simply a thing where the movie didn't come out around the time it was supposed to come out. And then another year passes.
The balloon just didn't take off.
And then another half a year passes. And now there's not that excitement about it anymore. You know, they're not pushing it as a Lee Majors, Jennifer O'Neill movie anymore. Now it's simply just a lurid title. So they take the Steel title out and call it Look Down and Die.
Which is a great title.
Which actually is a good title.
I would rather
makes it a much more B movie title. Yeah, and it's not a picture of Lee Majors and the other guys. It's just like a guy hanging from a girder, you know, over a 1,000-foot drop, you know, going, you know, like you have to read that Lee Majors is even fucking in it. Anyway, so that's how I saw it when it opened. Look Down and Die.
Look down and die. There's like a ellipsis there. Like
no. Look down and die.
Just
all right.
Plain look down and die.
Yeah, look down and die. I thought it would be fun to watch the movie with you guys. So we watched it. And like this would be a movie that I would have given a C or a C+ to when I saw it at the theaters. All right. Like I said, the idea I give an A to. All right. But I wanted to have a print. I haven't seen it in a long time. And so I thought you guys would get a kick out of it. And then so we ended up watching it. And lo and behold, you guys loved it. You absolutely loved one. And you made me like it a lot more than I did before. I was really, really enjoying it because you guys were having such a good time.
It's a movie about America and what makes America great.
I kind of agree. Look, I agree with you. I had a really, the way that, as much as I love Ozana's Raid, the way I felt a little lesser after watching it this last time, I felt much more bullish about Steel having watched it with you guys. And so we were trying to figure out what to do for the third movie. And then Gala just kept pushing Steel because she wanted to talk about it.
Well, what happened was after I watched it, I was like, I need to see this movie again because I loved it so much. Okay, well, it's not available on streaming. It never had a DVD. I can only get it on VHS. So I'm going to go get it on VHS because I want my mom and I to watch it together. I think it would be like she loves Lee Majors. So she wants to watch it.
Yeah, she's of the age of like Gil Gerard and Lee Majors.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm going to get a VHS, I'm going to be pushing like, hey, I have a tape of this. Let's do it on the show. I like it.
Well,
I think you got two tapes. One that you could put a tape into Video Archive.
I'm committing a tape to the archives so that it is official.
So that it's official.
Archives.
S will go. It'll go in the dramas under S. Yeah, by all means. In this instance, we're basing it off of a print, not the video cassette. However, we will rectify that because the video cassette's on its way. But we decided to do it anyway because we had such fun with it. George Kennedy plays this complete builder of buildings, contractor who's a legend in his own time.
Like a total George Kennedy style, working man, blue collar, white collar guy.
Yeah, just like he
owns the company, but he's up there with the men.
Yeah, he's the building version of his character Joe Petroni in the airport movies. He runs that airport by his teeth.
Yeah,
you know, and his brawn and his muscle. All right. So Lou Cassidy is building this building. He's in a fight with his brother, played by Harris Yulin.
Who runs the trucking company.
Yeah, runs the trucking company.
Who brings the steel to the work site.
And so he has to build the building in a certain time, or else he's going to forfeit his contract. Now, it's a tough build, and it's a short amount of time, but he can do it. He's Luke Cassidy. He can do it. He can do it. He can do this. And so he's going to do it, and he's doing it. And then this happens in the first scene in the movie. An accident happens, and Luke Cassidy falls off the building, and he dies. And so now his daughter, Cass Cassidy, played by the always beautiful Jennifer O'Neill, she gets control of the contract. So either it's a situation where she makes a deal with her uncle, who the two brothers were in constant battle with each other, trying to take over each other's company. So either she makes a deal with her uncle where she gets either sort of paid off on, 20 cents on the dollar, all right, in order to finish the building. Or she finishes the building in the time that she has. And
keeps the company solvent.
Yeah, and fulfills the contract. Now, if she doesn't, she loses everything. She loses the entire company. All right. But if she can fulfill her dad's contract, which her dad could do, but now she has to do it now. And
she's like a woman who wears like white throughout the whole movie and high heels. Her outfits are absolutely stellar throughout the film.
That's a thing on Jennifer O'Neill movies, all right? Is she always has the best wardrobe of any actress in movies from the 70s.
Oh, she's giving Samantha Eggar a run for her money.
She actually does give Samantha Eggar a run for her money. And the thing about it is also, they never say that Cass Cassidy is a famous model, all right, who has now just risen to the occasion because her dad died. But that's how you watch the movie. Yeah. They never say that, but you just assume that she's a famous model, all right, who got roped into this, and we just missed that one piece of exposition dialogue. So the thing is, so she's got a friend in the labor department, played by Art Carney, Pignose, and he goes, well, look, if you're going to try to finish this, there's only a couple of guys on planet Earth that could actually do it. And so she tracks down Lee Majors, who has walked away from this kind of work as a trucker now, but he was one of the great guys. And if anybody can finish this job in the few weeks that they have, it's Lee Majors. He can do it. And so she talks him into joining the team, and he does. But he knows that if he's going to do it, he's not going to be able to do it with just these union guys. He's going to need to put together a team of the best guys out there.
The Magnificent Seven of construction.
And that's where the movie becomes the movie it is. And that's where the movie becomes kind of delicious. As he sets out, just like Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, to set out that team. So he goes and gets this guy who's like the great high-wire walker. He can go in any height. This guy's the great electrician. This guy's the great crane guy.
This guy's the demolitions guy. The Irish IRA demolitions guy.
Yeah, the IRA guy is the demolition guy. Yeah. And so they literally put together like the Magnificent Seven of construction workers, and they have the 3 weeks or the 4 weeks that they have to finish the building. So in that regard, it plays like a Men on a Mission movie. It plays like a Magnificent Seven movie. And it also plays like a sports movie, because they either going to build the building at the end or they're not. And if they don't, they lose the game. And you actually are committed to really seeing the progress of the building and to see them to fulfill the contract. So you have, I can't remember the name of the Irish guy who's a demolition expert. You have Albert Salmi playing the crazy old coot who runs the crane. You have Richard Lynch playing his standard bad guy character, except he's the bad guy working with the good guys, but he's still kind of a troublemaker.
Yeah.
You have Terry Kaiser, who is my least favorite of the group, or he's the Italian Valentino.
Yeah, the ladies' man.
The ladies' man. And then you have two younger guys that want to be part of this amazing team, which is played by Roger E. Mosley, who played Leadbelly.
Yeah.
In Leadbelly, and a guy named Hunter Von Leer, who I remember from that time period. When they do their initial Wild Bunch walk, that's the best scene of the movie. Yeah. When they do their Wild Bunch walk to the construction site, all right? Because, this is it now.
Well, I like how all the other construction workers are like, whoa, look, man, it's so-and-so, it's so-and-so. Whoa, look, it's the legend,
wow,
he's here.
That guy's quit years ago. Oh, wow, he's back. Yeah, that stuff is fucking great.
What I love about this movie is how it shows all aspects of America, both good and bad, and it brings them all together. And it shows that all these disparaging types, the industrialist, blue collar workers, indigenous people, immigrants, and the racist, like Richard Lynch, like the kind of I mean, I can only describe him as what he is, because he's a racist or a bigot, we can call him.
Bigot.
He's a bigot. You get all these guys together, but they're the ones who are building America out of steel.
Yeah.
They're building the skyline, they're building commercial towers.
Yeah.
And they come together to do it. And it's it shows this tapestry of people who normally do not get along, but they get along because they're building the building together, and they're up there, on the girders together. Real men walk in the clouds, I think they say.
Yeah, well, I hadn't thought about it before, but there is an aspect, even though they don't do it in the same way, there is an aspect of a Howard Hawks' Dangerous Profession movie.
Oh, it's exactly a Howard Hawks' Dangerous Profession movie.
Well, it follows.
Angels have wings.
It follows the structure of it perfectly, because Howard Hawks always has somebody die at the beginning, so you see how fucking dangerous the job is.
Yeah, we know how dangerous this is.
And it really, you don't need to convince me that walking on iron is dangerous. All right,
and they do a good job of making you feel that kind of vertigo.
I'm surprised that more movies haven't taken ironworking as a subject, because you really can't go wrong when you get the cameras way up there, and you have these actors just walking on these iron girders as if it's nothing.
And this movie does that magnificently. These actors are up there moving girders around, walking on, and I know that a lot of it is just sometimes it's 10 feet off the ground.
They still have to walk, even if they're only falling 3 feet. They still have to walk and not fall off.
They've got helicopter shots with George Kennedy up there sitting on a girder on the very top.
I mean, the actors do an amazing job. They all look really comfortable up there. You can tell that they did a lot of work, all right, to get over their skittishness and to be comfortable up on that iron. And it's very impressive, the work that they must have done to be able to do that.
I mean, I love that we're building a commercial tower. We are a tapestry of people coming together to do it, and we're doing it despite all of the interference that we're getting from the corrupt union.
Yeah.
I mean, and then they hang an American flag on the building to show their achievement and that we did it against all odds.
Well, I mean,
this is like a great, almost an inspirational film.
Well, look, the idea is so much fun, and they have a lot of fun with the idea of taking what would normally be a violent adventure in a Western or a war film, and taking that and turning it on its head and making it a workplace adventure. The fact that they're the Magnificent Seven of construction workers is a fucking delicious idea. Yeah. And when they walk like the Wild Bunch, all right, to the site for the first time, as everyone's, oh my God, that one, oh my God, that guy, oh my God, this is the greatest team ever. It actually is exciting. It's actually fun. And Robert Tessier is the other one. I forgot.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
The Cherokee.
Yeah, right. Cherokee, who is literally, he almost could be playing the bigot. Because he looks like a skinhead.
Yeah, well, it's Robert Tessier.
Yeah, but he actually
he's
is
Mr. Clean.
He actually is of First Nations descent. Yeah. He's an Algonquin descent.
The only negative to me, is the bad guys. They are, and Harris Yulin is a fantastic actor. He's
from
stuck.
Scarface. You can't shoot a cop.
Yeah, he's stuck. He's stuck with the functionary role that he took just for the money. All right, but the thing about it though is, they're functionary. They don't quite work. All right. The whole fight in the warehouse doesn't, is weak sauce. If there was more thoughtfulness to the way the bad guys work, I think this movie could be a complete home run. As it is, I think it's a triple. It's a really good triple that gets to home. It gets to home because its idea is so good, and also it's just fun. The cast, I even think Lee Majors is less than, but he's still. Jan Michael Vincent would have been amazing. But I really like, I think Richard Lynch steals the movie. I think it becomes Richard Lynch's movie at a certain point. And by the end, it really becomes Richard Lynch's movie. He kind of has to find a moment, him and Roger E. Mosley.
Well, I mean, it's the bigot and the black dude. And
I kind of feel they've gotten over that by that point.
Well, they get over it long before. They get over it at the beginning of the third act. By then, it's like we're in this together. Mm-hmm. The movie is written by Lee Chapman, a woman, from a story by Peter Davis and Rob Ewing. So I'm guessing this was some kind of assignment, maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like
assignment writing. Uh-huh. But I wanted to mention her because she wrote one of my very, very, very favorite episodes. I mean, this woman wrote like everything. You know, Burke's Law, Mission Impossible, Takes a Thief, Mod Squad, just writing on everything. So she's like as accomplished a TV professional
as these actors are.
As all of these actors are. But she wrote one of my very, 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 very favorite Wild Wild West episodes, which was from the first season. She did 6 episodes of Wild Wild West. But along with another writer, Jackson Gillis, she wrote The Night of the Whirring Death, which is absolutely one of my favorite Migueletto Loveless episodes. And it's all about him sending toys to people to like.
I wonder if she wrote one of the William Whitney episodes, because I think he directed the pilot and he directed a few in the first season.
That was a Mark Rydell episode. That episode, and it's such a fabulous episode because Migueletto Lovelace's reason, his raison d'être, is that he wants to create a state for children to live in peace. It's like this bizarre MO for Migueletto Loveless to have. And so I'm like a big champion of hers. And this movie didn't disappoint to me as far as like, script goes. It was fabulous.
No, if the bad guys were stronger and weren't just, like I said, perfunctory, it would be a horse of a different color. But the film really, I had a blast watching it with you guys. That's why you guys were responding to, you guys just kind of got the spirit that the film was in, and you reflected that spirit back out into the auditorium.
Well, Quentin, as you said, The Magnificent Seven, this movie had 2 taglines. The first one was, they reached for an impossible dream and built a miracle. And the second one was, The Magnificent Eight.
Oh!
That was the tagline for the movie. When I saw this, honestly, I was like, where can I find me a man to assemble a team and build 9 floors of a building to save my father's dying business? I'm single. I'm looking for my Lee Majors. Almost, or maybe like it gives George C. Scott's sex appeal in the hospital a run for his money. Jennifer O'Neill is also the kind of woman that I want to be. We were talking about the hospital and I was saying, I love how her dialogue in that is so great. Jennifer O'Neill, when she's in the truck with Lee Majors, and then like the truck stop hooker comes in.
Floozy. The truck stop floozy.
The floozy. Or his girlfriend.
There's no indication that money is being exchanged. She's just like she's like a what do you call it? Like a fangirl.
Actually,
to
he
truckers.
says she's my co-writer. She's my co-writer.
Keep my co-writer.
But I love it when like she's in there, she's trying to like give him the business proposition, and then like the floozy comes in and is kind of like trying to like, I'll be in the back like when you're ready, like you can get it on. And she just is like, stop the truck. I don't have time. You're not the man that I thought you were, and just leaves.
Which is totally Gala. Just take note, everybody.
And I loved that because that's exactly what he needed to have for his wake-up call.
Why he shows
chases
up.
her, and he chases her back to the building because now it's like he needs to redeem himself.
And that's because this is written by a woman. This is written by Lee Chapman. She knows what's needed.
And when Quentin's saying like the villain of like the brother in the movie is like not very strong, I completely agree with that. Like that's not strong, but like I don't really know if like that is the villain. Like I think the villain is actually, it's like, because Lee Majors and Jennifer O'Neill come from 2 different walks of life. And they come together, and the villain in the movie, I think, is just like their differences.
Time is the villain. Time is the villain.
As a woman,
I think when the team actually has what looks like a Batman fight in a with Batman with the Joker's minions in a warehouse, I think you can call them villains.
Where they like attack it with.
You're
guns.
Laughing because it's exactly what it was.
Yeah. And also the piece of wood, on that guy.
But I'm not holding that against the movie. That's actually one of the things I find charming about the movie.
That's not the part I find charming.
And actually, and just so that we know that we're, just so we all know that I'm not bagging at all on Harris Yulin, because the guy is.
Harris Yulin is a fantastic actor.
He's an incredible actor. He's an absolutely incredible actor. He's stuck
with a terrible role. He knows the role's terrible.
He might be showing, but he's actually in maybe one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek DS9.
Oh, which one? Which is he in?
He plays Amin Maritza, who is basically the Mengele character who was running like a death camp.
Oh, you mean the Cardassian?
Yeah, and the Cardassian and Amin Maritza. No, I'm not that guy. Who cowers under the table.
Oh, yeah.
It's such a powerful performance, and it's directed by Jim Conway.
Oh wow,
who's my favorite.
James L. Conway. Yeah,
James L. Conway. To me, he's Jim. my pal Jim.
Hanger 18, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Beyond and Back, I think.
I like Beyond and Back.
That's a really good episode of DS9.
Yeah, Hunt for Noah's Ark and
In Search of Noah's Ark.
In Search of Noah's Ark. Hunt for Noah's Ark. No, I love Jim Conway. I think Jim Conway directs the very best episodes. He also did Death Wish on
Death Wish with the great Garrett Graham.
He directs the very, very best episodes of Star Trek, as well as all the good stuff on the Orville. Yeah.
James O'Conway directs episodes of the Orville?
Yeah. What's great about the Orville is that they were smart enough to bring a whole bunch of Star Trek guys when Paramount was basically flushing those guys down the toilet. Seth realized, hey, these guys are freaking geniuses, and brought James Conway aboard. And
I like Bruce A. Pittman, director of Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2. Jennifer Neal is really good in this. One of the qualities that Jennifer Neal had that was very special to her is she had very, very, very good camaraderie with her male co-stars. It's surprising all the sexy guys out there that, even though they've done a zillion movies with this actress versus that actress, how rare you see that actors actually have chemistry together. That there's something fun about them being together per se. But Jennifer Neal was very good at that. She was very, when you see her with James Coburn in The Carrie Treatment, or you see her with Donald Sutherland in a dog of a movie called Lady Ice, they're still good together. She has a neat dynamic with these strong men. She has nobody had a dynamic with Michael Sarrazin, but you put them together in the reincarnation of Peter Proud, and they have chemistry.
Yeah.
All right. And then when she goes to Europe and she's making movies with Giancarlo Giannini, they're fantastic together. But even a stiff like Chuck Norris, especially at the beginning of his career with a Force of One. Yeah. There's a spark. I think she's doing both their jobs. She's doing his job and her job, but she's doing it. And you feel that with her and Lee Majors in this film.
Oh, I love that's part of the reason why I love this movie is because it's like, yes, like the aspect of like bringing together the team and like actually accomplishing, like, as Roger said, like all the different pieces of America coming together to make a building. It's fantastic. But I love the romance between them. It is so believable that like you have her who's like the daughter of this builder and him who has frozen at the top of a building and can't return because he feels such deep shame. And then they fall in love. And it's like, I get it. I love it. I see it. It's like I see it in the truck. I see it when he comes back. I see that she believes in him. I see that she wants to be treated as an equal. I love the scene where it's like they go to who is like the friendly older gentleman that is
Art Carney.
I
forgot to mention him.
And there's like they're in the pasture and they're getting served tea and Lee Majors is like totally out of his element. And then they go and they're like looking at the horses and they start just having like this really friendly conversation and they're telling each other the differences and he's trying to convince her that like it wouldn't work out between them basically. And he's like, I'm not emotional. And she's like, well, I am. And you're missing out on life, not feeling things. And it's such just like an honest thing that she says to him. And I think that's part of what helps him in his redemption arc, like acknowledge like what he's been feeling and what he's just been trying to hide of like his deep shame that he
pushing
has.
Down.
Yeah.
And it's just, his redemption arc is so satisfying. The action that leads up to it is really great. There's like, this movie has it all. It has heartbreak amongst the people, amongst the guys. Like I almost started crying at one point when something bad happens. I love all the characters. They're all so different. Like they're all unique. They all have their little backstories. Like the IRA guy is straight from Hennessy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like literally just like stumbled into
the movie. He literally could have been in Hennessy.
Yeah. He was literally working for Rod Steiger.
Yeah,
in
literally.
Hennessy.
And I just have to say, this episode kind of has a theme because all three movies feature like First Nations actors and characters. Like we got the Apache in both those movies and we got Cherokee in this one.
Yeah, we have the Apache doctor. Yeah, the Apache medicine man. Yeah.
So that's my little theme I found.
Quentin, between this film and Scanners, she did a movie called Cloud Dancer.
Yeah, with David Carradine.
Yeah, the Barry Brown movie.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I haven't seen, and Joseph Bottoms. Is that like a Waldo Pepper style movie? It looks like a lot of air aerial flying.
It's a lot of. It's very much like Waldo.
I want to see that movie.
Yeah, there's
that Barry Brown guy only did like 2 movies.
Yeah. It's David Carradine is terrific, and it's one of his best leading roles during that time period. I have it. I'd be happy to watch it. It has.
I'd really like to see that.
It has thrilling air stuff in it, and
because you know how much I love that.
Yeah. No, we should definitely watch it. Jim Sheldon said he considers it one of David Carradine's best lead performances.
Great. Well, and if Jim Sheldon says it, then because he holds the irons to the fire.
Yes, he does.
So on September 21st, 1978, stuntman AJ Bakunis did the high fall stunt fall in front of 1,000 people, and upon landing on the airbag, it actually split. And he sadly did not survive. So we dedicate this segment to him, AJ. Thank you for doing that crazy record-holding fall.
That's the fall that happens at the beginning of the movie with George Kennedy, and the movie is actually dedicated to him in the film. So somebody wanted to watch Steel?
So if somebody wants to watch Steel, you guys, I'm sorry, it is not streaming. There is no DVD of it. You're going to have to pick up a Vestron VHS.
Yay!
And then make a rip and put it on
Or become
YouTube.
my friend and come over to my house and watch it in my screening room.
You guys find a VHS of this, watch it. I really loved it. I think you will too.
It's a worthy film.
I got mine from, I want to thank everyone first off that helped me find this tape, because I had to find 2 because I wanted to commit one to the archives because
you actually have to commit one to the archives in order for us to include it.
Yes, exactly.
So I wanted to commit one to the archives.
And my drama section and the S's are waiting for its Steel.
So I want to thank everyone who helped me find it. You guys know who you are. I ended up picking up my copy for $25 from my man Frankie Latina and his Video Vault.
Wow. This is going to go right next to Steel Magnolias, and what would the other one be?
Maybe what would that that Shaq movie Steel?
Yeah, there's also that Shaq movie Steel.
We don't have that one. Steel Yard Blues, maybe. All right. Okay, I think it's time to give out some awards.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I will start off with Best Actor. Well,
come on. Do we have to go through the motions? Let's do it. Let's go through the motions.
Let's go through the motions. Okay, George C. Scott, The Hospital.
George C. Scott.
Yeah, come on.
It's George C. Scott. It's like
the bear of a man.
Listen, Burt Lancaster is an equally.
Burt Lancaster's fantastic.
He's a fucking virile man and an incredible actor, and
Lee Majors.
And Lee Majors. There's so much strength going on in all of these.
God, there's a lot of testosterone in this episode.
In all of these episodes, but nobody does it like George C. Scott.
The volcano of a man.
Okay, now Best Actress. There's only really 2 people to choose from in this. I'm going to go with Jennifer O'Neill.
That makes it okay. Diana, they're both so good. Oh, this is so hard.
I'm going for Jennifer O'Neill as well.
I think Diana Rigg is very good in the movie. I don't think she was the best casting for that role. I think
just saying Julie Christie, like how you said, and frankly, just saying Diane Keaton, as you said, and you said another person,
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway
in 1972.
In 1972 would have been amazing in this. I mean,
yeah, and also Jennifer O'Neill is just flawlessly walking through everything, without messing up her outfit, and she just is
or hair
that
she's
just
massive
flawlessly
mane of hair.
Well, okay.
None of it is extensions. It's all real hair.
Admittedly, Diana Rigg has a far tougher role.
Yes, but also Jennifer O'Neill stands up and out with that cast. She is up there with the boys, and she is just as strong as all of them.
A case could be made that, she doesn't have Paddy Chayefsky writing her fucking dialogue for her. She barely has a character. Basically, her persona and her outfits are her character, and she's one of the best characters in the fucking movie.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer O'Neill it is.
Okay. Okay, there are no supporting actresses, really. I mean, I guess there could be if you want to go deeper into the hospital. All right. Nancy Marchand.
The 65 cast members did it say on the back of there?
Yeah, I don't know what that was about.
Well, it's just that freaking woman. Soldier, don't leave me! Soldier, don't leave me!
And then there's the black nurse.
Ulzana's raid.
Yeah, Nancy Marchand.
Made Gala cry.
But I like Nancy Marchand, all right? If I had to pick, I don't even think there should be a best supporting actress.
Okay.
In this one. All right.
Best supporting actor, though.
But best supporting actor is that's a different kettle of fish. All right.
There's a lot to choose from.
Any other time, I would have said Jorge Luke. All right. Yeah. As Kinete. But like I said, I was just a little less impressed this time around with Ulzana's raid, even though I still appreciate it. I'm going with Richard Lynch.
You know what? I was just leaning into Richard Lynch as you were saying that.
Is he the guy that is burned?
He's the guy
then
who,
that's my choice
during the
also.
Vietnam War, he immolated himself.
Well, no. It was he was a protest against the Vietnam War.
Yeah, that's a protest.
And he poured gasoline on himself and set himself on fire.
Yeah, well, he gets my vote.
And has that amazing character actor face as a result of it.
Absolutely.
Also, his sequence of when they go to induct him into the group is just fantastic because he's up underneath a bridge straddling the thing and rappels. I don't know if it's really him, but it looks like it's really him. Rappels down, and it's a fantastic sequence. But he's very incredible and compelling.
And there actually is an absolute moment of genuine, almost sports movie satisfaction when him and, even though it's corny, but this is corn that works. When him and Roger E. Mosley, put the finishing touch on the building at the end.
I also really love Richard Jekyll in
Richard Jekyll's
Ulzana's raid.
Richard Jekyll is probably giving the better performance. All right. Having said that, I'm still kind of going with Richard Lynch.
I mean, look, if you wanted to do a war film, a Western, a frontier movie, you wanted Dick Jekyll in your movie.
Look, Richard
the
Jekyll,
guy is one of the greatest character actors of Hollywood, working character actors.
Richard Jekyll is giving a better performance. Yeah. I'm acknowledging that. It's a better performance Richard Jekyll gives than Richard Lynch. I just think Richard Lynch's secret sauce that he adds to that movie makes it my favorite.
He makes the movie.
It's not better.
It's also the toughest role. He's got to play the bigot. That's like a tough role to rise out of that and to become a hero in the movie is a big deal.
I just wanted I had to say Richard Jekyll because
you should, because I think he's fucking great, but I'm still going to stick with Richard Lynch.
Best screenplay?
I've got Chayefsky. Come on. I know that the ending of the movie is not great unless you listen to Quentin's reading of it and follow along, which I'm choosing to right now. But Chayefsky's dialogue is fantastic, and I love
his sense of humor.
His sense of humor. I love all of the Native American stuff that he always pulls into his writing.
The themes that he's trying to deal in and wrestle these ugly pigs. All right, the themes that he deals with. It's a mud wrestling match.
And the framing that happens in the hospital, where it's the beginning sequence, which I don't even know if we talked about with the voiceover, talking about how this bed got open and how this began the events, is really good.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be a little controversial here because walking into this room, I was like, of course, it's going to be Chayefsky. It has to be Paddy Chayefsky. It's Paddy Chayefsky, of course. But you know what? If we remove ourselves from all we know of Paddy Chayefsky and just look at this movie, and I look at the few faults that I had in it, where that kind of New York stagey thing, and then I give myself a little bit to Lee Chapman. You know what? I think I'm going to go with Lee Chapman on this. And I know, listen, I get what Paddy Chayefsky is.
I'm not giving it to Paddy Chayefsky simply because he's a famous name, and I'm afraid not.
I didn't mean to imply that.
There's a reason why Paddy Chayefsky is Paddy. If you did not, if his name was Joe Brown, and you saw this movie, go, who the fuck is Joe Brown?
Yeah, because he's great. No, listen, I don't mean to put it down. I'm just saying that I'm going with Lee Chapman.
I feel like if I hadn't have heard Quentin's reading of The Hospital, I might be voting for
Look, I know in my heart that it's Sharp or Chayefsky. I know that, but fuck it.
Okay. That's a good reason. That's a very good reason.
My gut tells me to go with Lee Chapman.
Franklin Browner's calling in
Franklin
right now.
Browner speaks through me, and what he says is Lee Chapman.
Okay, I don't think we need to go through any more technical credits. Let's get into directing and picture.
Let's do it.
Directing.
Well, it's not going to be Steve Carver.
Yeah, I agree with that.
No offense.
I mean, I think I'll go with Arthur Hiller. I think he does a really good job allowing George C. Scott to be George C. Scott. And I also think his work with Victor Kemper makes the movie flow really well. And I think he does a really excellent job directing.
I think Arthur Hiller is the third leg of the tripod holding up the hospital between Chayefsky, George C. Scott, and Arthur Hiller. Those three guys, man.
You're turning into Paddy Chayefsky in the way you keep talking about the film.
Takes 3 legs to make a table stand.
I'm seeing some blind melon right now.
And they're wooden sticks, all right? None of that tin shit, all right? Titanium. No, wood sticks, baby.
Steel.
I would go for Arthur Hiller as well. I can't believe
man, Arthur Hiller.
I can't believe I'm saying that over Robert Aldrich, but in this instance, I think it's exquisite the way he directed Paddy's work. All right, the way he dramatized it, the way he was able to pull off those immense takes with
supports his actors 100%.
George C. Scott having 15 pages of dialogue. And even if you don't take my reading, the idea that he can even tell a second half that I don't agree with and it doesn't actually affect how I feel about the movie one iota.
On top of all of that,
I just didn't like it as much as other things, but it didn't ruin anything.
So on top of all of that, I just, as you know, I loved Arthur Hiller on a personal level. He was a really sweet, super nice guy to me when he was president of the Academy. And also, I really loved the movie he did right after this. And I feel like I'm the only person who loves that movie, which was Man of La Mancha.
Oh, yeah, no, that's one of your favorite movies. I've never seen it.
I love Man of La Mancha.
Lance
hated Man of La Mancha. He used to berate me for liking that movie.
So Man of La Mancha, that's not a straight version of Man. They're doing a production of Man.
It's the musical production of Man of La Mancha. I'm Don Quixote, the Man of La Mancha.
But they're actually doing a production of Man of La Mancha in it, and then it kind of goes back and forth between it's real or it's a production.
Yes, and then you know that I love kind of historical, mythological, knights, I've never
seen
mythology.
I cannot believe that movie has gotten as bad word as it's gotten for the simple fact that nobody has ever looked more like Don Quixote than Peter O'Toole.
And Peter O'Toole is the perfect Don Quixote. Yeah. He is absolutely perfect in it.
I mean, they have. I've seen stills of him just like reading a newspaper on the set of Man of La Mancha and go, well,
that's Don Quixote.
That's Don Quixote. He's like eating a donut and drinking a cup of coffee, and reading Variety, and it looks like fucking Don Quixote.
I think it is the most beautiful and artistic of Arthur Hiller's films that I've seen.
Wow.
It's also highly supported. It's a musical. I love musicals. It's beautifully shot. Mm-hmm. It has this incredible texture to the film, and I'm sure it's all shot in Spain.
Best Picture.
I'm going with The Hospital. I would have gone with Ozana's Raid any other time, but I'm going with The Hospital now. Yeah. I just fucking love The Hospital.
I'm going with The Hospital too, mostly because of that tripod.
I love The Hospital, but I'm going to have to go for Steel because I'm going to rewatch it, and I really they're both really, I give them both my love. I do.
Well, you lobbied hard for Steel.
I lobbied hard for Steel, and I won.
And we broke our rules. Okay, normally it has to be on video. Now we wouldn't have done it if we had been watched a Blu-ray, but the fact that it was a print that gave us a little bit.
But also the fact that Gala was able to find a couple of tapes.
Yes, that had to have happened.
If it had not been available somehow on VHS, then
I would have. You might have had as much as I want to. I'm afraid. Dirty pool.
But thank you, Quentin, for allowing Steel to be on the show because I want more people to see it, and I hope that it becomes more available.
We had a ball watching it.
Yeah,
that was a terrific double feature of American Commandos.
A really unexpectedly terrific double feature. Like I don't know in what universe you would double feature those, but I guess we're in that one.
Well, the universe where I just got them delivered. All right. Hey, let's watch these 2 new prints I got. That's the world that you see them double.
That's the world I'm living in.
That's the universe we're in.
Not a bad world, though. Yeah.
It's a freaking fantastic world, if you ask me.
I'm not complaining.
Well, I think it does it for this week's episode. I'm Quentin Tarantino.
And I'm Roger Avery.
And I'm Gala.
Roger remembers who he is.
The actors will step out of the hot burning lights now.
The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avery, with executive producers Colin Anderson and Natalie Mooallen. Our engineers are Alex Gonzalez and Casey Holford. Find out more about the show and get Video Archives merch at videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter @Video Archives and on Instagram @VideoArchivesPod. Have you ever wanted to hear Mick Garris discuss the differences between original source material and the movies they become? Or Joe Russo's favorite gateways into horror? What about author Max Brooks and how he thinks that Minecraft will literally save humanity? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these topics on my new show, The Gala Show. In this weekly podcast, guests from Los Angeles and beyond have 30 minutes on the clock to bring whatever topic they want to the mic. So, tune in every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The first episode drops October 26th, available wherever you get your podcasts.